Borderlands, the grandfather, if you will, of looter shooters. Some would even say it used to be the GOAT of the looter shooter genre. Now, whether or not you have played the series, whether you love them, you hate them, whether it's Borderlands' unique arc style or its crude toilet humor, time and time again, Borderlands has actually seen relatively good success. Even the offshoots like Wonderlands did really well, exceeding developer expectations while also having 30% of its player base be people completely new to the Borderlands franchise. However, Borderlands 3 kind of fell flat, and that was actually my first Borderlands experience. And for me, it fell flat for a multitude of reasons. The narrative really didn't hit for me. I felt like the writing, the dialogue, the jokes were a little too over the top, and I also felt like the antagonists, the content creator villains, just didn't really shake me. On top of that, the loot was super plentiful, with legendary and rare drops raining 24/7, which ultimately made everything not feel that special, which is definitely something you don't want in a loot-driven game. And pretty much everyone has said that Borderlands 3 felt like a step backwards from Borderlands 2, which is why there is a lot of pressure on Borderlands 4. You see the marketing push from Gearbox hitting all-time highs. Gearbox knows that Borderlands 4 needs to pop. It needs to exceed even the success of Borderlands 2. And the question is, will Borderlands capture that magic again? The same magic that encapsulated so many players back in 2009 and in 2012. In this video, we are going to put the answer to those questions into your hands by giving you an overview of everything we know that is coming with Borderlands 4. I've given my first impressions of our first playthrough session, but that was over a week ago. And since then, I have immersed myself into the Borderlands world. So let's dive in and talk about everything new that's coming to Borderlands. Now, to set the stage, I think we need to briefly touch up on the storyline. You see, at the end of Borderlands 3, an entire moon was teleported out of the galaxy and away from the planet Pandora, which was the main destination of the first 3 games. Now, this was done in order to protect the planet. Now, turns out the moon was teleported into the orbit of the planet Kairos, piercing its protective veil that kept it hidden from the rest of the universe. Now, this veil was also keeping the rest of the universe hidden from Kairos, including its people. Now, once this protective veil was shattered, cataclysmic destruction was unleashed across the planet, disrupting the multi-thousand-year reign of a guy called the Timekeeper, who essentially has been ruling over this planet and its people. Now, this tyrant is obsessed with order and essentially has ruled for this long because he affixes every citizen with cybernetic implants called bolts, essentially allowing him to control their mind. Now, once the sky was opened up by the teleported moon, residents of Kairos suddenly knew for the first time ever that there was more to life than just Kairos. Some of the people then began to pull out their implants and began rallying against the Timekeeper, which over time created multiple factions to hopefully end his reign. Now, the Vault Hunters ended up crash landing onto Kairos 6 years later. In the middle of all of this going down, not only is there a civil war happening, with multiple factions fighting the Timekeeper sending an army, there's also tons of crazy wildlife that really doesn't care what side you're on top of a bunch of weirdos that removed their implants but also lost some of their brain at the same time, and vault hunting itself is also illegal on Kairos. So the Timekeeper definitely doesn't want the Vault Hunters around. So there's a lot happening here, guys. This time, the story is much more toned down, though, as Gearbox wanted to focus on something more dark and more grounded. They've also replaced a lot of the memes and pop culture references that people didn't like in the third game, the more drier style of comedy that stays in universe. The overall good news here for new players is that for the first time ever, the game is set so far away from where the first 3 games took place that although yes, playing previous Borderlands games would enrich your experience, it most definitely isn't necessary. Gearbox is focused on an almost entirely new cast of characters this time around, which will open up the series more to new players. Now, speaking of the planet Kairos, this world that Gearbox has built encompasses so much of the new things coming to the series. For the first time ever, we're getting a true open world versus the open zones from the previous games. Kairos has 4 distinct regions to explore, all of which are seamlessly connected to each other with no loading screens in between, or at least from my experience, I didn't notice any loading screens. So essentially, you can walk from the rolling hills of the Fade Fields at the beginning of the game, all the way to the frigid mountain peaks of the Terminus Range. Now, thanks to the upgrade to Unreal Engine 5, this is the largest and most detailed destination Gearbox has ever built, with rumors circling that the explorable space is larger than that of even Elden Ring and GTA 5. Now, you've probably even noticed from the visuals that this is definitely an upgrade. The graphic novel art style looks a bit cleaner. The overall world of Kairos looks more vibrant and colorful. With that being said, though, you can definitely tell that this is a Borderlands game. Those post-apocalypse vibes, the art style, it's a Borderlands game through and through. However, something that was brought up the last time we talked about Borderlands is, yeah, the world may be big, but is there going to be things to actually do? Or is it just going to be a big open landscape that just feels empty? Well, the openness of the world isn't the only new thing. There's also dynamic weather and events, including things like world bosses and a bunch of random stuff that fits right in since it's a Borderlands game after all. From the recent gameplay event that Gearbox held, where we got about 90 minutes each to explore the Fatefields region, we saw so many different things happening. Some folks beelined the main campaign missions, which this time around are non-linear for the very first time, and some people just explored in different directions to see what they could find. Some folks just walked around when a spaceship on fire flew by in the sky and crash landed in the distance, then would follow the trail of smoke to that crash site, who would then be met with multi-step side missions that ultimately brought them underneath a drilling operation. We even saw a random airship event happen where we can beam up into an order ship and then try to kill everyone and destroy everything, which involved mechanics, which for some reason we just couldn't figure out and ultimately ended up failing. On top of that, there were towers that we could scale, literally parkouring our way up, making use of Borderlands 4's new movement abilities. There's also random armored truck patrols carrying tons of loot, world bosses called Rift Champions that appear randomly in your instance that have a greater chance of dropping rare world drops. There's crawler events that are these pseudo puzzles that unlock cosmetics, and those are just the ones that we've seen. There's probably a ton of other events outside of that. Now there's even smaller stuff too, like drill sites, auger mines, survivalists, caches, propaganda towers, and various collectibles to find and collect that we come to know and love from the previous games. Now you also have points of interest now that appear on the game's new UI compass and a much better world map. These points of interest can be many things, including timekeeper strongholds that once taken over can be claimed for your Crimson Resistance and unlocked as a safe house with a bounty board and a fast travel points. There's also silos that once hacked into deploy decommissioned order balloons that you can use for quick traversal across the sky. Now these silos also reveal secret vault key fragments that are scattered throughout the world. And once collected and combined together, you can go explore a hidden vault, which is a higher level dungeon with challenging combat and some serious loot. Now the crazy thing is, all of this stuff can be found literally just in the starting region. It really seems like more than ever, Gearbox has built a world with lots of good distractions and tailored the world to lead you to new things while exploring, versus you just picking up a quest from a guy that tells you where to go all the time. CEO of Gearbox, Randy Pitchford, said that they've littered the world with tons of secrets and hidden things in every nook and cranny, high up and down low, because they want the world to be not only fun to explore, but also surprising and rewarding. Let me just say, when it comes to open world games, that is the most important factor. In order to get lost in the world, it needs to be just chocked full of stuff that constantly distracts you. How many times have you played an open world game where, yes, you started off with the intention of maybe tackling one specific quest line, to suddenly find yourself completely off the beaten path, immersed in whatever other events or side quests, and then you look back on your gaming session going, holy hell, how did I even end up here? To me, that's like the best part of open world games. Now, the way you go about exploring Borderlands as a whole is completely changing as well. You've got a slew of new movement mechanics, which really add not only to just traversal, but also to the combat itself. You can point grapple, you can dash, you can glide, you can double jump, you can wall climb, you can even swim. The beautiful thing is that you can actually combo all of these together during exploration, allowing you to reach those new heights. And in terms of combat, I'm sure it's going to allow for some crazy speed runs. Now, another cool feature is that you can use the grapple to grapple items to yourself. From throwable explosives and barrels, you can essentially just pick them up and then throw them at an enemy. Now, some of these new movement abilities can also be upgraded as you progress throughout the game. Gearbox has also ditched the whole catch-a-ride vehicle system for a more streamlined, easy to access, and customizable new toy, the Digirunner, your very own personal vehicle that you could summon at any time, very similar to Sparrows inside of Destiny. Now, these vehicles have many types. They're equipped with weapons, and you can even customize it via unlockable hover drives. There's also collectible cosmetics to find that drip out your ride, allowing you to travel in style. Now, the last new gadget in your ever-expanding tool belt is the Echo 4, a potential second nod to Destiny, as this little guy works essentially like our ghosts. They hover around you, they point you in the direction of tracked missions, they hack into things, they scan the environment. They also let you upgrade your ammo capacity and change your Vault Hunter's appearance on the fly, which takes us to what build crafters are most interested in, that being our playable characters, also known as Vault Hunters. There are 4 brand new characters for you to jump in as. You've got Vex, the Siren, Rafa, the Exo Soldier, Harlow, the Gravatar, and Eamon, the Forged Knight. Now, just by looking at these guys, you could probably already tell a little bit what each of them does. I've only personally played with Vex and Rafa, but essentially Vex has the ability to summon minions. Rafa, the Exo Soldier, can either go full melee, or he can summon these cannons that will automatically fire at enemies in your crosshair. Now, I've only seen gameplay of Harlow and Eamon. From what I've seen though, Harlow uses like telekinesis to lift and suspend enemies. He also has a mechanic called entanglement, where when enemies are afflicted with this rainbow glowing element, damage dealt to one spreads impact to all enemies currently entangled. So good AoE effects. Now Eamon is actually probably going to be the one I'm going to use, just simply because he looks like a Titan main. He can throw these elemental axes at enemies, with the secondary action seal giving him multi-elemental throw. He can even summon a shield that absorbs damage and then pay it back to enemies with a projectile whip. In Scourge, he can also spawn a wall of fire that blocks incoming enemy shots and even provides cover for his team. Now, customizing your individual Vault Hunter's build has also been expanded upon in Borderlands 4. You've got new equipable items, new slots, more skills, more passives, new systems, a ton of options. Now, this time around, each action skill now has its own dedicated skill tree on top of the passive skill trees that we're used to seeing, which have also been expanded upon with many more options. Now, there's even socketable augments and capstones that act as powerful build-defining changes to your action skills. Overall, there's more than twice the amount of build customization options present here than there were in Borderlands 3. And we haven't even started talking about gear. Now, something that Gearbox has pointed to is that the upgrades to all of their weapons through Unreal Engine 5, essentially saying that everything has now been built using 4 times the polygons. They also have much more variables to them thanks to the licensed parts system. And the simplest way of explaining this new feature goes like this. In past Borderlands games, each gun is from one of the handful of weapon manufacturers, and each manufacturer has their distinct traits. So for instance, if you found a Maliwan gun, for example, you know that it deals elemental damage, and you can switch between 2 different elements on the fly. No matter if the gun is a pistol, shotgun, sniper, whatever, it always had that Maliwan elemental traits. In Borderlands 4, weapon manufacturers have gotten more greedy and essentially started working together. What that means is that every weapon has the chance to drop parts from other manufacturers. The higher the level and the rarity of the weapon, the more parts it can roll with. Now, these parts give bonuses to the weapon that relate to the manufacturer that the part is from. Now, if we use the same Maliwan gun, for example, in Borderlands 4, it might drop with a Torgue magazine, giving it explosive ammunition, all while still having the same Maliwan elemental switch that the base model is known for. Now, this adds a beautiful amount of randomization on top of the already heavy RNG-focused loot that Borderlands has. But hey man, that's the name of the game. They've always had tons and tons of loot and weapons that do crazy things. And this only adds to the huge pool of wackiness and build possibilities, especially when you pull legendaries into the mix, which also can roll with random parts. Now, they work a bit differently, as their legendary ability takes up a weapon part slot. So at max, you can get 3 random weapon parts on a legendary instead of a max of 4 that you can get on epic and purple quality loot. This also makes epic loot more in-game viable and throws them into the build crafting mix more than ever before, solely because they can roll with so many random parts. You could be incredibly lucky and get something that works so well together and is so strong that it rivals even legendaries. Adding onto this, there's also ordnance, which is a new slot for heavy weapons like machine guns and rocket launchers, but also grenades, throwing knives, wrist cannons, and more. Now, those last 2 being completely new loot additions to the series. These don't require ammo and instead act on a cooldown, so you no longer have to hold onto your super powerful weapons for a possible upcoming boss. Now, this also frees up a weapon slot because you don't have that giant rocket launcher taking up space anymore. Now you can equip 4 weapons plus whatever you throw into your ordnance slots. Now, ordnance weapons also have a completely different rule set for its randomly rolled parts. Without getting too much in the weeds here, just from what I've gathered, just know there's going to be a baffling amount of ordnance customization. Now, if you're a new player, or if you're someone like me that's just been out of the Borderlands loop, I get it. This may sound overwhelming. Gearbox even acknowledged this and mentioned the system will start everyone out slow. At first, you'll just be getting base weapons so that you get an idea of what each manufacturer does. Then over time, as you level up and progress and find better loot, you'll start to see more and more parts roll on weapons to ease you into the system. Now, as far as the total number of weapon manufacturers this time around, it seems to be 8 of them, 5 returning and 3 brand new ones. Vladoff, Torque, Jacobs, Maliwan, and Tito are returning, and the 3 new ones are Order, which use the advanced arsenal of the Timekeeper's Order army against them, loading extra ammo into the high power burst to eliminate targets with precision accuracy. We've got Daedalus, which I'm probably killing these names, guys, but these weapons run from full auto assault rifles, shotguns, to burst firing pistols, SMGs, with the ability to use multiple ammo types. And then Ripper, which needs a little time to spin up before blasting at full auto for as long as you can hold the trigger. Now, you would think at this point we're done with loot. We're not. There's even more new stuff. Let's just say you really like a certain weapon manufacturer and you want to build around it. Enter in the new enhancement slot. This slot replaces the artifact slot from Borderlands 3, and it allows you to build craft into your favorite weapon type. Do you really like precision shots and bouncing around crits with Jacob weapons? Slot in a Jacob's enhancement enhancement buff, which will then buff up those ricochet bounce percentages and crit damage. Another new gear slot is the rep kit, which basically act as a booster item. It can be used to give you health regeneration, move speed, increased rate of fire, and other buffs depending on the kind that you equip. It acts on a cooldown and replaces the health pickups from the previous games. Now, you know what else this series is missing? Set bonuses. Now, those are in the game in the form of firmware, a system that has been kept relatively hidden by Gearbox. As they said, it's more of an in-game build crafting feature, which they aren't talking about yet. But firmware is not a slot on its own, but instead a modifier that can randomly roll on non-gun gear, including shield, rep kit, class mod, ordnance, and enhancements. Now, there's a bunch of different types of firmware, and the more you have of a specific firmware equipped, the more powerful it becomes, or the more bonuses you get, up to a max of 3. Now, we don't know what abilities firmware adds exactly. This has been kept under wraps by Gearbox, but I would assume it's going to be pretty powerful, as there's an in-game vending machine dedicated for firmware transferring, whatever that means. Now, it's also important to point out that all these new gear items have rarities too, all the way up to legendaries. So they'll be a very integral part of your Vault Hunter's build alongside your weapons and skill trees, which is why the build crafting potential of this game is most likely going to blow past its predecessors pretty much in every way, but especially when you consider the new license part system. Now, it's also worth noting that Gearbox has done a huge pass on their rarity system thanks to feedback from Borderlands 3. Essentially, rarity will matter again. Legendaries will not be raining from the sky anymore, and when you find one, it will be, quote, a truly special event, or you could just be like me and walk straight past it. Now, they also assured that they did a pass on all rarities because they wanted all gear to feel good, not just the rarest of gear. And just like the past games, each boss still has a dedicated loot pool, so you'll be able to farm that super rare gun with the crazy low drop rate to your heart's content. Now, speaking of bosses, there's been a very good change made to boss fights themselves, as well as the process of farming them. To make farming easier, they've added an entirely new feature called Moxie's Big Encore Machine. This is literally a machine you interact with that will automatically respawn a boss or restart a story mission. No saving or loading required. No multiple loading screens required. This is something that I've seen Borderlands players asking for quite some time. As far as overall boss fights go, Gearbox has emphasized that they've made boss encounters much more exciting, with some having actual mechanics to them, which is much needed because nobody likes just straight bullet sponges with invulnerability phases. I think the best example of this so far is the hidden vault boss we went up against at the Borderlands 4 event, which I had a great time taking on, and just hearing other Borderlands players talk about it, they too seem to be enjoying it. Moxie even said that this boss was the best boss fight in any Borderlands game, period. I would say that if Borderlands 4 has more boss fights like this, dude, I'm down. So guys, that is essentially the majority of the big stuff coming with this next iteration of Borderlands. Now, there are some smaller things I want to fire off really quickly before we talk about the planned post-launch content. Borderlands 4 will have online co-op with up to 4 players, like it's always had, as well as a local 2-player split screen, which the franchise is known for including. Now, there'll also be full cross-play at launch, which means you can play with whoever you want, no matter the platform. Instance loot is also returning this time around, so you and your buddies can't steal loot drops from each other. They've also upgraded the lobby system so that it's much easier and simpler to join friends. And there's now specific matchmaking so that you can find other players with the same goals as you, whether that's you trying to find someone to do campaign missions with or just finding someone to farm bosses with. You'll be able to load up with like-minded players much easier. Now, the game even has independent campaign difficulty. So if you're blasting through content and you want more of a challenge, but your buddy is struggling to keep up with you, you're free to up your difficulty without affecting your friend's difficulty, which is pretty wild. And vice versa, they can even lower their difficulty without it affecting your own game. Now, another nice quality of life feature here, you can now fast travel to any of your friends if you get separated in the open world. There's also a brand new slick UI, which you've probably noticed by now if you've played the previous games. This is the first time Gearbox has had a major shift in the UI department, completely changing the menus, the inventory, everything. They've added a compass at the top of the screen that shows location icons, points of interest, as well as enemies. Now, due to player feedback, they allow the minimap to be toggled, making it easier to see where enemies are around you at all times, similar to the previous games. Now, there's some fan favorite characters returning among the mainly new cast of characters, those being Moxie, Zane, Amara, and good old Claptrap. Now, it's been said multiple times, but you don't need to know all of their backstories to understand the story of Borderlands 4. Now, lastly, because Borderlands 4 is an open world game, we do need to talk about level scaling. Borderlands 4 has a semi-dynamic level scaling, which works like this. Say you boot up the game for the first time and immediately run somewhere very, very far away. There's a chance that you're going to find yourself amongst high-level enemies that will absolutely wreck you. There are tough areas out there hiding good loot that you really can't tackle until you're a higher level, or you put a really good build together to take them on. But get this, enemies will not scale to your level if they're above your level, but they will slightly scale with your level if they are are below your level. So for instance, if you're level 50 and you go back to the starting region, enemies might be around level 40-ish, but will also drop gear at your level. And the last thing we need to talk about though is the game's post-launch content. We're kind of in a unique scenario right now where we know a lot of the post-launch content plans before the game is even out, which means Gearbox already knows exactly what they want to do post-launch and have already built a lot of it. The most significant post-launch addition to the game comes in the form of 2 story packs. These will be paid DLCs that will each come with a new playable Vault Hunter and an entirely new region of Kairos, with extended narrative content including additional storylines, side missions, fresh new loot, and cosmetics to collect. Now this will be the first time a Borderlands game has added new Vault Hunters in over a decade. There will also be 4 bounty packs dropping post-launch. These are also paid DLC, and these bounty packs are more tightly focused content containing new areas, missions, loot, cosmetics, vehicles, vault cards, and a unique boss fight. And for those of you that don't know, vault cards are Borderlands' version of battle passes. They'll give you bonus gear, XP for completing repeatable challenges, which also unlock additional rewards. Now these also don't expire like traditional battle passes do in most games, which is good. There's no fear of missing out, but I also understand the gag reflex when it comes to battle passes. Now that's currently all the information we have on these story and bounty packs. Gearbox has promised there will be more information soon. They've also promised tons of updates to incorporate player feedback and balance once the game is out, as well as big free content drops that they can't talk about quite yet. And they also haven't talked about Endgame, at least not extensively. We know basically next to nothing on this front. From the recent Game Informer article, Borderlands 4 creative director Timon said this about Endgame: "We've thought about Endgame from the jump, and we have some great plans for it that we're going to share. But I think we're taking a lot of lessons from both Wonderlands and Borderlands to make sure that we execute the best version of the Endgame yet." So there you go, guys. That is everything that I have learned about Borderlands over the past week. Big shout out to the editors for assisting on this. I do want to mention that I'm still very much a noob in Borderlands, but I'm pretty hyped about this one, and I'm hoping Borderlands 4 is going to be a game that I sink thousands of hours into. Let me know in the comments below what you think though. Are you excited about Borderlands 4? For my Borderlands veteran players, is this something that you wanted? Is this the direction you wanted to see Borderlands go in? We would love to hear your thoughts. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.